Wait a minute. The newest champion has just arrived to Summoner's Rift. This masterful artist has 10 unique abilities in his kit, making him one of the most exciting champions to ever be released. Now, before I get you all excited about Hwei, I want to emphasize that this video is not a Hwei support guide. If anything, this is an anti-Hwei support guide, as I want to focus this content on some tips and tricks on how to counter him in lane using Maokai support. Regardless if you are a Maokai main, a tank support main, or a regular support main, the best way to learn a specific matchup is to actually play the opposing champion first. I'd recommend you to go test Hwei out in the practice tool or in some quick play, so you're at least somewhat familiar with his 10 abilities. And because Hwei is such a combo heavy champion, I highly recommend watching Azop's 12 combo Hwei guide to learn more about his different spells. Once you have gone through some guides and have a general idea of how Hwei works, feel free to continue this video to learn more about how I intend to counter him in lane as Maokai support. As you probably know, Hwei is an AP poke champion, and I see him filling a niche similar to Zyra, Ziggs, Xerath, or Vel'Koz when played as support. If the enemy Hwei is not very comfortable on AP supports, or is first timing the champion, this will be a great matchup for Maokai support. Maokai's all-in potential makes him very threatening, as once Hwei is rooted, he does not have many reliable disengage tools to escape from the teamfight. Hwei's primary strength as a support is that he can deal AP damage, however, a lot of his damage is tied into chaining spells together due to his passive. His passive causes subsequent damaging abilities to consume a previous mark, dealing additional magic damage to the target. This means that if Hwei misuses an ability in lane, he is very vulnerable to getting all-in and will be unable to return enough AP damage. Try your best to reach level 2 in lane as Maokai support as quickly as possible without taking too much harass damage. Before you execute the 2 melee minions on the second wave, ping your ADC to know that you are looking for an all-in. Upon reaching level 2, immediately flash WQ onto Hwei, or the enemy ADC, whoever is more poorly mispositioned, and collect a free early kill. The most Hwei will be able to do is throw out one measly spell at level 1, and he will be as easy to kill as a ranged minion. The worst case scenario from this level 2 power spike is you trade flashes, which isn't too bad for you as Maokai support since you will bring Hextech Flash Traption in this matchup. You can play in the bushes and threaten an all-in for the rest of the laning phase. Once Hwei reaches level 3, he will have 9 abilities to play around with. Even though he has all these abilities at his disposal, do not worry, because both his supportive and crowd control abilities have very long cooldowns. Let's start by analyzing Hwei's more supportive ability, Serenity. It's unlikely Hwei will use Fleeting Current since his WQ is meant to either leave base more quickly or for chase down purposes. If he ever does use this ability, this signals that he's looking for an all-in with his jungler, so disengage appropriately. If Hwei uses WW, you'll want to make sure to knock enemies outside of his pool of reflection to prevent them from refreshing their shield. Hwei is a champion that is very reliant on mana, so Hwei will most often want to use his WE to apply pressure in the lane while refunding mana on each of his empowered auto attacks. If Hwei uses WE, he's likely looking to trade against you with these empowered autos, but this will also mean neither of his other 2 supportive W abilities will be available to cast. As long as you wait out his 3 empowered autos, this will be the perfect opportunity to look for an engage. Remember that his W ability has an 18-second cooldown at rank 1, meaning any misuse of W will make Hwei and his lane partner very vulnerable. Abuse this long cooldown by looking for an aggressive engage when the ability's effect has expired. Next, Hwei's E ability, Torment, is his crowd control ability, which also has a very high cooldown at 15 seconds at rank 1. If Hwei misses any of his E abilities on you, it should significantly increase your lane pressure since he will have no CC abilities to prevent Maokai from completing a successful all-in. The EQ ability is a skill shot which only fears the first target. This means your ADC should have no problem returning damage if you are able to both engage on Hwei while absorbing the fear. The EW ability is the most likely skill shot that Hwei would use to disengage from a teamfight, since the gaze will lock onto the nearest target and root that champion for 1.2 seconds. This is a bit longer than Maokai's Twisted Advance, but since you are a tank support, you should be able to tank this root duration and any subsequent damage long enough while your Aftershock is in effect. The EE ability also applies CC that slows and knocks up units from afar. The drawback here is that this knockup only applies after a significant cast time delay. Let's just say it's very easy to dodge Hwei's EE ability and shouldn't be of any major concern. As you can see, none of Hwei's CC ability is really long enough to prevent him from being all-in if the Maokai support can see the aggressive angle first. I'll repeat this again. If you see Hwei misuse an ability, look for an all-in, as it will be unlikely for him to escape his impending death. Lastly, his Q abilities, known as Disaster, are damaging abilities with the lowest cooldown in his kit at only 10 seconds. It's likely that Hwei will be using a combination of his WE and his QQ to try and deal as much damage as possible in lane. It sounds simple, but it's really Hwei's responsibility to try to land his skill shots. If you are able to dodge his abilities and play outside of his AoE damage, you will have immense pressure in lane due to your all-in potential. In general, you want to play super aggressive as Maokai support anytime you see Hwei miss a damaging ability, since having one less ability available means it will be very difficult for Hwei to proc his passive, making him much weaker as an AP poke support. The key concept I want you to understand as Maokai support, or any engaged tank support, is to abuse Hwei's long cooldowns anytime he misses or wastes his abilities. You don't want to just sit back as Maokai support against an AP poke champ if you have a health advantage during these windows of vulnerability. If you ever see Hwei miss 2 damaging abilities in lane, you most definitely want to all-in the lane and pick up a free kill. Do not let these windows of opportunity go to waste. If the enemy Hwei is super experienced and is somehow landing every skill shot with good mana management, it can be difficult for Maokai to find a suitable engage. Hwei's poke can be annoying, and you may slowly bleed out in lane due to constant harassment from his WE and Q abilities. Try to stay as healthy as possible by bringing these 2 runes, Biscuits and Second Wind. Preserving health in lane for Hwei is a key resource to manage, such that you will maximize the chances you can find an appropriate window to all in. Even if Hwei is excelling in ability usage and positioning, you still don't have to worry too much, because as long as you remain somewhat healthy and relevant in lane, you should be able to outscale Hwei, since AP poke supports generally don't have enough damage to become a viable threat without a significant source of gold. Losing lane to Hwei isn't ideal, but learning how to concede lane gracefully is a key attribute in becoming a solid weak side player. Try and wait for jungler assistance or for the enemy bot lane to overextend. You can then flash WQ all in them to turn the tides of a losing lane. Lastly, let's talk about Hwei's ultimate, Spiraling Despair. You can think of this ultimate as similar to attaching an Anivia ult to the end of a Varus ultimate. If Hwei is somehow able to land his ultimate on you, your team will want to be nowhere near you for the next 3 seconds. You will be slowed up to 120%, and nearby allies within the circle of despair will have to deal with Hwei's burst damage of 200 plus 80% AP at the end of the ultimate. Fortunately though, Hwei support won't have as much AP compared to Hwei mid, meaning he won't deal significant damage. Oftentimes, your job as a Maokai support is to absorb the enemy ultimate for your team and simply re-engage when the enemy's ultimate has expired. If you are ever in fear of your life due to reinforcing enemy units, you can always throw your own ultimate for the easy disengage. In terms of items, I would recommend purchasing Merc Treads, since there will be quite a bit of CC coming out of Hwei's kit, even if it may be difficult for him to land his abilities. On the off chance you do get feared, slowed, or rooted, having that extra tenacity will be very beneficial. Consider building a Locket of the Iron Solari as well, since this item is great at preventing AoE damage, which is a key signature of Hwei's kit. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this anti-Hwei support guide. Now you never have to ban Hwei, since you'll know exactly how to counter his kit. As always, if you like this content, make sure to hit that like button and consider hitting that subscribe button too. It really does help. Thank you so much for watching this video. Feel free to let me know how you ended up dominating Hwei supports in your next solo queue game.